think that's one of the things we wanted to point out in the conference, is that if you do choose a narrator becomes so emotionally invested. This is where I really respect the craft. It's not just reading, you know, it's really bringing a story to life. Embodying it. Really, it's like that. And I remember Caroline George was also presenting at the conference. She was one of my very first narrators.
Very talented narrator.
Oh, one. And what she was saying is that when you're performing on stage, you are doing 90 minutes, and yes, you are totally in there, and you don't have every line. When you're doing an audiobook, you've got every character and you've got every line of the book. So it's very it's digging deep to the craft of performing.
And it was a different style of performance for April Pressler.
Yes.
And thinking about Psychology of Plants, because that was our first sort of academic text. So it was a completely different performance, and we've got that about to go live.
Now, April, you know, is a singer, and she's an amazing singer, you know, like really jazz, smoky, sexy blonde type of voice. And she was selected to do Psychology of Plants, which is an academic book, and it was she was smoking. She makes this a whole book. It does credit to the book, because I love the book anyway. You know, the sentience of plants and the history of it, and harkening back to ancient history and ancient philosophers, as well as the Middle Ages and alchemy, and
with a lot of science throughout it, which could have been very weighed down, very heavy, very draining, but not with April.
Not with April. In April's hands and voice, the whole thing, the writing and the voice together are really beautiful. So we did that for the first time on 3 platforms simultaneously. It's come up. It looks gorgeous. Oh my God, it looks gorgeous. You know, the front page. So it's up on Kindle. It's up on, you know, print on demand on Amazon and Booktopia and so on and so forth. And we're waiting for it to come up on the audiobook sales platforms. And when I was talking to Dave just this week, Dave Stokes, he was saying, having been in the business for 7 years, Christmas is hard because usually it takes between 2 and 4 weeks for a book to appear on the audiobook platforms. At Christmas this time, it takes between 4 and 8 weeks. So, you know, traps for young players, and also for, you know, authors who are keen to get their book up there. It's probably better to try and put the book up there right in the beginning of November if you want it out by Christmas. But in any case, it will be up there. I can't wait for Pop. We call it Pop. Psychology of Plants to be up there, and for you know, everyone who was involved in it, particularly April. We're going to be doing a little interview with April.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so because, you know, she was really forging a new path with that one. I remember you were involved in some of the editing of the work, and you know, just sort of getting a sense of how do you deal with academic quotes? Where do you put the references? How many times do you say quote unquote? So we played around with a lot of those.
What's the best experience for the listener?
What's the best experience for the listener? Yeah. What's an audiobook experience? And that's something we've been talking about a lot. Like, well, how do you turn a book into an audio experience and still be faithful to the book, but knowing that it isn't a print book. Yeah. That's not the way. It's a totally different experience.
And that's on our plate at the moment, because we've got a new book altogether, potentially. We've got some quotes for a children's book.
A children's book with lots of, that's very colour oriented, in fact. So that's going to be exciting to sort of work out some of the particularities of it. You know, like, how do you deal with the colours? Will we make them sounds? And it goes from a brown world to a coloured world, and I think that the author is probably an artist, and so she's very keen for kids to learn how to mix colours as well. So that's going to be really exciting to quote for and sort of come up with some solutions. And the other book that I showed you just before we started this interview.
Yeah, it's quite fun actually. Is it anthology or a collection of pieces that are linked to an artwork?
Yeah. So this is a group in a country regional area that's quite cultural, and so the artists and the writers groups got together and created an anthology. So the artists put forward a work that they wanted highlighted, and a writer was asked to use that as a basis for a story.
Such a beautiful concept.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was looking through the artworks, and they are just stunning. And I was thinking, rather than ignore them, then maybe harken back. I was talking to the editor. Harken back to, my experience in, the RPH network, the Vision Australia process, which is audio description. So there are people and, talent out there that are there to audio describe. And, when I was talking to Dave Stokes, he was going, well, what does that mean? I don't even know what you're talking about. I said, okay, for instance, the fireworks, so Sydney fireworks every year, New Year's Eve, 2RPH and the ABC would have an audio describer describe on radio what the fireworks were like. Because, as I pointed out, when you're on radio, when you're on ear, we're all vision impaired. Like, we don't have the visual. And yet, we've got the capacity to imagine that visual, which is great. So, I was looking at one of those paintings and going, tawny background, split through with grey cloud, and, 10 pairs of eyes looking out at you peelingly and with curiosity. You could have a lot of fun. Yeah.
I think, previous jobs I've had too, it's, we're moving towards a space of being more disability
conscious and sensitive.
Completely. So I know with Word documents that I create now, you don't just put a picture in, you make sure to code it in a way that describes the picture. Yeah. So, we might be looking, towards making a lot more books like this, or the sector might be anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, when I was working in that area, we were looking at words like audio preferred and audio reliant. So there are people who are audio reliant, like failing eyesight, chemotherapy, where you can't focus for very long. People who've got bipolar who get distracted, by visuals, for instance. You've got people who've got arthritis who, are print disabled, as they say. Yeah. So you're not talking about one small section of the community. You're talking about a huge range of people. And as Colleen Parker, the editor of Seniors Stories, was saying to me, there are also people who are learning English. Yeah. And so they're reading and listening at the same time. And that's their way of getting that together. Or people who've got ADHD, and also just literacy issues of a very wide variety. So it's going to be, I think you're right, sort of enfolded so that nobody is missing out on something that's critical to our community, which is, storytelling and relation of information. Yeah.
And that's what we're all about, isn't it? Getting our Australian authors and their stories, these artists, and getting it out into the world.
Yeah. And it's like vital. No matter what happens in the community, no matter what those external forces are, if you've got the resources and the capacity to be able to enrich your life, like, I don't know, I'm thinking Ice Age. Yeah. You're sitting in your cave. And you're not going to, you're still going to thrive. And share stories.
What else do we have for December? We've got a Christmas party coming up.
I've been pushing that one. I think it's part of having worked so hard and sort of forging new ground in a totally new area. And I have never felt so tired at the end of a year.
You have worked.
You guys have sort of like, I've not been able to throw anything at you and Kristen.
I was going to say, Kristen, who is another project manager, there is no job too hard or too out there, and she's just, let me think about that.
And then, let me think about it, and then also just not only got a solution, she's got a presentation. So I think there's a video with our newsletter this month that shows a presentation that she created for herself for just the landscape, the whole landscape, and statistics about audiobook growth, double-digit growth, the last 12 years, set to double over the next year. And she uses, references and so on and so forth. So yeah, really beautiful presentation. Yeah. I look forward to sharing that with everyone.
And possibly that's about it for December, unless we want to wish everyone a happy holiday.
Yeah, wish everyone a happy holiday, happy listening and reading, and looking forward to keeping on growing and, really making, coming across new problems. I love that. Coming across new areas that haven't been traversed before.
Opportunities.
I'm thinking of it like Star Trek. Go where no one has gone before. So anyway, have a great Christmas and festive season, holidays for people, across the board, and enjoy a break if you possibly can.
Yeah, take care, everyone.